Hello, Crushies. This is your Crusher Convo Crew. I am Jessi.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are participating in the second annual Captain Picard Week that is hosted by the amazing podcast Strange New Pod.
Very excited. And we have some amazing podcasts that are also participating in Captain Picard Week. So we are in very good company and super excited to represent Crusher during Captain Picard Week with our segment, The Little Ship That Should. So shout out to all of our fellow podcasters out there. Special thanks to Strange New Pod for this opportunity. And I'd like to give a shout out to two podcasts before we get started.
Yes.
Green Shirt, right?
Yep.
A Newbie's Trek through TNG.
And they're going to be part of this too. They're going to be joining us this week. So
pivotal in the creation of Crusher Convo. And then, of course, our ultimate cyber suggesters, Open Pike Night. So thank
Jessi,
you,
Cam, and John. Yeah.
Thank you all for inspiring us to share our love of Beverly Crusher and Picrusher. And a little side note, if you don't ship Picard and Crusher, like that's okay. Right. Picard and Beverly, that's all right. Qualify which Crusher we're talking about here. This is Picard and Beverly.
Picard and Beverly.
Yeah.
We should probably make that known.
Very clear. But it's basically about their friendship too, that could lead to a romance, but really just about their relationship and why it's so pivotal and why we're very happy that it looks like it's going to be explored more in Star Trek Picard Season 3.
Oh, yeah. And of course, I'm excited about Picard Season 3. I know you've been a little hesitant about what's going on, but
cautiously optimistic.
Optimistic. But, this is, and I just started, as not many people know this, but I literally have been a Trekkie for not even a year yet. And instantly after that first season, I found my old tweet that I was like, I love Crusher. And it was like a crying emoji. And then I was all like, what is going on with Picard and Crusher? Like you just see it. And it's frustrating to know that nothing happened. And even my husband told me that. He's a huge fan. I love my husband. This is dedicated to Chris.
From the beginning, he's been a fan of TNG, right?
Since
he's an
OG
was fan.
4. Since he was 4. But he always said that Troy and Riker are the love story, obviously, because they do end up getting married and having a family. So that was his mindset. But later on, when he finally got me to watch it, he had told me, he's like, the captain and the doctor, you could tell they loved each other, but they never got together. And I was like, I got to see what this couple is about. And it's
Spoiler
true.
alert.
Spoiler alert. But I mean, it's true. You see it the very first episode.
Well, if you want to take a look at my journey, I was a Trekkie from about 8 years old, but from the original series. My father had got me into the original series. I loved the movies. I loved Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Dr. McCoy was my favorite character. And I watched TNG here and there as a kid, but only when like the Next Generation would be on it. But Picard scared me because he hated children. So I was not into that. But I remember being a kid. And then as I got older, when the movies came out, we would go see the movies, even the TNG movies. And I, for some reason, was under the impression that Picard and Beverly were married. So I had never really watched the Next Generation seriously until Star Trek Picard was announced back in 2018 or whenever it was. And after a lot of suggesting from some friends and fellow Trekkies, like, you got to give Picard a chance. He's really the best captain. And that's anotch debate for another podcast. I decided to give Picard a chance. Exactly. And I binge watched TNG in 2018 and fell in love with Picard's character and loved Beverly Crusher. She became one of my favorite Star Trek characters and just iconic. And I love her relationship with Picard. I really think they bounce off each other well. They have a nice rapport, and she really grounds him. Just what she does when she's in the room, it's like he elevates and becomes better. And she becomes better too, being around him. Yeah. So I like them together. I like their chemistry, and we're going to explore that a little bit, I think, today, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and that's how we met, because, you started following me when I went on my X-Files journey.
We love the X-Files as well. Mulder and Scully, another big ship.
Scully, and
podcast for another day as well.
That will be an episode of Crusher Convo. Don't you wait. But I remember when I finally was like, I'm going to start watching The Next Generation, you you were the first one that tweeted me. You're like, hey, who's your favorite character?
Like, hang on.
You're like, wait, I got questions. Like, you know, who do you like? What's going on? All this stuff. And look at this. Less than a year later, we're now
here we are doing a podcast. Last year, I was like viewing Captain Picard Week and loving it. And now I'm on Captain Picard Week. And just again, big shout out to all of Strange New Pod. It's just awesome. Like great podcasting community supporting each other. But can't wait to deep dive this.
I've been a part of other fandoms and I've never been part of a fandom who literally like rise each other up and talk and have opinions, but there's no cattiness, there's no fighting, there's just discussion.
All good fun.
It's all good fun. Yes, there's no drama. So it's been a lot of fun. So, you know, today, since we are going to be talking about Picrusher, which is, of course, our ship name for Picard and Crusher, there's also PC, there's also Bonker. That's been back in the day. Hello, Sandra, Francis, and Jackie.
Shout out to the Bonkers out there.
Shout out to the Bonkers.
Just pushing this ship for 35 years. We're trying. We're trying for you.
I know. They got way more. Oh, my gosh. But so today we decided to do our top 3 favorites, and we decided to do the top favorite moments, missed moments, and then of course the episodes that really reflect the Picard and Crusher dynamic. And then I also reached out to our listeners and they also chimed into their favorites. Only a couple did their favorite episodes and a good handful did the missed moments, but boy, do I have a bunch for favorite moments. It was overwhelming. And even they were like, this is so hard. I can't just choose 3. So
it's jam-packed. Buckle up or hold on to your console because it's going to be an interesting ride.
It is. Absolutely.
And you have your Beverly Crusher doll there. And I've got my
I do.
Picard and Beverly, as it falls there, action figures. So we are ready to go.
So Beverly's hanging out with my little voodoo looking doll of Beverly, but
nice.
I did ask my husband for Picard and he never got it for me, so I was a little upset.
Maybe next year it'll be.
I told him to still order. I was like,
something to look forward to.
Our anniversary is coming up. Maybe he might do that. We'll see. We'll see in the next episode we tape.
Yes.
But speaking about our listeners, who chimed in with us, Michelle, and gave us their favorites.
Yes. So we have a lot of listeners that we want to thank, particularly E.G., Zoe, Sarah, Erin, Belinda, Kim, Sarah B., Melissa, and Jen. Thank you for chiming in. And let's start crushing this conversation with our top 3 favorite moments.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go first. And I was just like everybody else. It was really hard to pick my top 3. The first one I have to say was the Ready Room and the Naked Now. I know. Here's the thing. This episode gets a lot of flack for obvious reasons. I am not saying this is a great episode, but holy crap, they were hilarious. And as a lot of people know, this was Gates' audition piece. So she thought she was playing a very funny character.
Insane. They're like, how can we establish this character for the actress that will play her? Let's give her this scene that will be nothing like the character.
Nothing like her. But the way she did it, and she even got in trouble she pulled down her zipper because apparently Jean was like, there's no zippers in the 24th century. Well, they should have told the costume designer that. But I mean, it was just like.
Or the director could have let her know.
The director, but of course, it's the second episode. The director doesn't even know what's going on yet. And
it wasn't Gates' fault.
It wasn't Gates' fault. No, but I just remember her saying that. And so every time I see it, I was like, okay, but she got into it. She really sold the scene. And, Patrick trying to be, leveled and stuff, but he's trying to fight the urges and they were doing it their own way, but it worked so good. And I loved it that I had to mention it. I was all like, this episode doesn't get a lot of love, but that scene definitely should.
And also in sick bay, when they're definitely flirting in sick bay, where he goes,
she touches his cheek. Yeah.
You're captain. Then if I'm doctor, you must call me doctor if I'm going to call you captain. And she pinches his cheek and they salute each other and he's looking at her. He adores her in this episode. It's really
remember that little wave? The gif of
The
all gifs.
embarrassing wave.
That
So
little
many
wave.
good gifs from this episode.
From that episode. It really was. And of
a
course,
bright moment in an otherwise poorly written,
and of course, yes, and of course another
retread
ship.
of the TOS episode, Naked Time. Yeah.
Yes, which I did see for the first time like last month.
Yeah, we're getting into the other tracks too.
I know. And go back to my story. I didn't grow up with Star Trek, never saw Star Trek until last year. So yeah, that's my story. But yeah, it's just a great scene. I think it's funny and it's cute. My second moment.
This is gonna be a contentious one.
The end of Attached. Now, we have discussed Attached. Calm down, Michelle. Just bear with me.
Getting my screaming goat ready is what's gonna happen.
No. So
viewers don't know what that reference is, but they might.
They will soon. We have an episode where there's a screaming goat. You have to find
it. Might come out tonight. We don't know.
We'll so the thing about the end of Attached, that is a whole, honestly, just a Picrusher episode. I loved how Gates and Patrick played the ending, and we have discussed Attached before. We believe that she walked out because she was trying to protect herself. She was literally like,
yes,
he's not ready. Okay. She knows it. And that's the whole point.
100%.
But they, the touching of the cheek, her kissing his cheek, the little peck on the lips, which you say is like the best kiss they've ever had because it's so
it's the best kiss Picard has ever received. I'm sorry, that's still gonna go there.
Yeah, but I'm like, but it's innocent and pure and just really lovely. Exactly. And the little teasing and the clinking of the glasses, like just the whole ending. And even with her walking out, because she was trying to protect herself, you could still see her like resisting the urge to turn around and go back in.
She was disappointed.
She was disappointed and he was disappointed. And of course, everyone says, oh, well, Beverly's the one that walked out. Well, you know what? She was also attached to him through some mind link and she probably knows more than we do. So we don't know what she was hearing in his mind. We don't know what was going on.
She knows about lessons. I'm pretty confident she knows about what happened with Nella Darren. So think back to that episode where, I think we mentioned that later on. We may have mentioned, but that Nella Darren had to transfer off the ship because Picard couldn't handle it. Couldn't put somebody he was in love with in danger. And he was also wearing the same date night shirt from Lessons.
No, I always bring up that shirt.
This scene, which Harry Kim wears in Voyager later on. I like the wardrobe.
I haven't seen that yet, so I wouldn't know that
Spoilers.
yet.
But Harry Kim inherits it.
But the thing is too is with she had to choose, and she wanted to keep her friendship intact. She just wanted to not lose him in that capacity. And I've been there. My husband and I were best friends for 13 years before we got married. And we also had that struggle. We didn't want to take that next step because we knew if it didn't work out, we were going to lose the friendship. So it's definitely, she had a lot going in her mind. So she kind of made the best decision that she could. I feel like up from Attached all the way up to the finale, you could see their relationship just a little bit different, and you can kind of see them growing a little bit closer. So that's why the movies are disappointing, and we'll mention that later. But not right now. But it's just something that I could watch over and over and over again. I love the angst. I love how they play it. The emotion is there, and so yeah, I think it's great. So,
and also, it's important to mention, we were talking about their friendship. Their friendship dates back to his Stargazer days. They were friends, the three of them. So
when she was still in academy. She was in school.
Well, yeah, she was finishing up her med school.
Her med school.
And basically, the thing about Beverly and Jean-Luc is that they were first and foremost friends. Yes, she was a CMO, right?
Yeah.
But during his Enterprise D days, she was the one that he would turn to a lot of the time. And she was the one he felt the most comfortable with. And I think we'll get to that in a little bit. But it's important to know that their friendship supersedes everything, including their romantic relationship, again, which is what makes this scene so poignant and why I love Gates's choice there, or the directorial choice with the kiss on the cheek. That is one of my favorite gifts from their relationship.
Yeah. Now, my last of my favorite moment, the ready room. I love the ready room, apparently. The ready room scene and cause and effect.
Yes.
Cause and effect is typically not known as a Beverly Crusher episode, but in Crusher Convo, we believe it is. And it's just because she's in every freaking scene in the episode. If you guys go back, she's in every scene, and there's a reason for it. But this was super adorable. She couldn't sleep. She calls Jean-Luc. Here's the friendship part that we were just talking about, right? She's calling her friend like, hey, I have this weird feeling. I need to talk. And she changes clothes, comes right over. He gives her, the warm milk with nutmeg, Aunt Adele's recipe. And she's very comfortable on the couch. They're super close.
She's got the ribbon in her hair still.
She still had the ribbon in her hair, which hated that ribbon. And I hated those PJs.
Forgot about that.
Everyone thought it was it's fine. I know you triggered me. You triggered me. But the thing is just the thing is though is just it's a simple scene, but it means so much. It speaks volumes to that friendship. It speaks volumes to how comfortable they are. The way she's just sitting with her leg up and she's drinking the milk and he's talking and she's listening and things like that, and the way that they're talking to each other and they're smiling. Now, fun fact, Michelle, of course, you know this, that wasn't in the script. The way they were playing it, they were like, that's not how it was written, which is not.
But... So on the DVD commentary, or the Blu-ray commentary, rather, the Brandon Braga, who wrote the episode, was talking with Seth MacFarlane. They were doing commentary on it. And he was just kind of talking about how they milked the scene and how they were just playing up the history and the chemistry. Yeah. And Seth MacFarlane was like, well, what's wrong with that? And he goes, nothing. But I didn't intend it. I didn't write it that way. So it just goes to show, and I think Jonathan Frakes had said this too about Riker and Troy, like the writers kind of pulled back after season 1 and said, we don't want it to get too soap opera-ish. We don't want it to be weird. So they pulled back on a lot of what they had promised in season 1. And the actors, though, really enjoyed playing it up. And I think that they made those scenes better. Like Sir Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden nailed it in every scene. Their chemistry together, I can't wait to see them again. But in this scene, love this scene. It's just, she goes to him and he's reassuring to her. And Beverly has a sixth sense there. So again, she kind of solves that episode a bit there if you rewatch it.
She does. And the thing too is they trust each other. Like he trusted her instinct. Like, okay, you're feeling like this. Let's do a scan, a level 2 scan. I'll have Jordy do that.
He didn't write her off.
He didn't write her off. And that was just another testament to the friendship. And so it was just, I just really, really enjoyed it. I kind of call, you don't get a lot of actors that have natural chemistry. I could only name a few off our heads. One in Point, David Duchovny,
and Gillian Anderson.
And it's rare. It's very rare to have that, but it makes the scenes so much better. And Gates and Patrick had that from the beginning. They still do. Yeah. The moment they still do, even when they were doing the Comic-Cons and things like that,
I wish they had done other films together. I wish they had done a film together that wasn't Star Trek, but it might have felt weird. It's kind of like why David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson don't really work together outside of the X-Files, because they feel like that's a unique chemistry. But I would be interested to see them both. I think they did theater, like a theater production during TNG at one point.
Yes,
but
Patrick was directing.
But we never saw them together on screen aside from TNG. And I think that would be interesting to see them playing different characters, but on screen together.
Yeah, and I think they would nail no matter what they did, even if it was evil characters.
It would be fun.
It would just be fun. Yeah. So what are your top 3 favorite moments?
All right. So this is a big GIF for me. I use this GIF a lot.
I picked this so quickly. I knew this was going to be on your list, like instantly.
Yeah, it was top on my list. Well, also I'm a big fan of TOS, and I really enjoyed the episode Sarek from TNG, where they bring Sarek back. And he has the mind meld at the end of the episode with Picard, which kind of, that whole experience that Picard has very much foreshadows what happens in Picard season 1. I'm so old, nothing left but dry bones and dead friends. And as he's going through this, obviously Beverly wanted to be there to monitor his life signs, because this was, this mind melds, again, a human probably shouldn't have done this, but Picard is amazing. And so she really was hesitant, but she again, she's respecting him. Okay, you want to do this? I'll be here. But he chooses Beverly. And I think it's an important choice here because their relationship up to that point, I mean, she had been there season 1 and things were intense and kind of contentious. She left in season 2. She came back in season 3 for Wesley pretty much. Right. And then this is the end of season 3 before the Borg. And they're kind of solidified in their relationship, their friendship. Like they've settled back into the friendship that they probably had when she was married to Jack. Very similar. Right. And he's there and he's breaking down and he allows her to comfort him and to be there for him. And she is such a nurturer and just there for him. And that's what I love about Beverly Crusher. She's a healer. She's a nurturer. And Picard struggles with emotion. He's socially awkward. He struggles with kids and she has a kid. So she is constantly challenging him to grow and to be better and brings out all the best parts of him. And when he's just able to let go with her like that, it's just so beautiful. And it's just a nice sign of friendship there. A lot of people love like the Data and Picard relationship or the Riker and Picard relationship. But I would say Beverly and Picard's relationship outside of the romantic realm, it is super powerful. And this is a great example of that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I love that scene because it's done in a one shot with Patrick, with the camera moving.
Yes.
And I always, the one question I would ask Gates is, how was it just watching this? Because she literally was just sitting there watching this go down. And I think Patrick said they only took 2 takes.
No.
And he just, he's a stage actor. So this is in his element.
And so is she.
Yeah. And so is she. But it was just, I'm sure she was just like in awe of what was going on. But it's a beautiful scene. And I didn't even know who Sarek was because I hadn't seen TOS, but I now know who he is. But
right. Spock's dad. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah.
But the thing is just, it's a very, very interesting episode. It's pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
And
there's an underlying thing what Sarek is going through and what Picard will go through, because he's fighting. There's some good fanfic out there too. I don't know if we're probably not going to get to that today, but filling in the gaps of Picard and Beverly. And there's some nice fan writing out there about how just like Sarek was struggling, like he couldn't tell Amanda or Perrin that he loved them. He's like, do you know how much I love you? It's almost like he was holding back from Beverly too. He never really told her how he felt up to that point, right? I don't think he really ever did appropriately out loud. That's we'll get to that.
Right.
But that's a big thing for me too, that it was mirroring a little bit of what their relationship was and what Sarek was going through.
Yeah. So what's your second one?
So yes, number 2 is the reunion in Remember Me. So Beverly Crusher has been trapped by her son in the static warp bubble, and she's thinking her way out of it. And she finally figures it out, and they're trying to get her back. And the Traveler is there, and Wesley and the Traveler are kind of phasing in and out. And Picard is, when we finally realize that we're not watching like the timeline that we're supposed to be, and we're watching Beverly in the warp bubble, and that the crew is trying to get her back.
Right.
We see Picard being so pensive. He looks so depressed. He looks so worried.
Yeah.
And this is right after the Borg, right? Right after Beverly has nursed him back to health through his assimilation, which we didn't see, which wasn't really dwelt on, but it was so important that she brought him back his humanity.
Yep.
And so I think the idea of losing her at that point, after he was just starting to recover, it was just after family. We do a lot of Crusher context on Crusher Convo in the context,
and it's
of that.
important. It's important.
So Picard can't do anything, and Troy kind of shoots him a look as he goes down to the, to engineering, and they have like the portal is open and the lighting is amazing. It's very intense, and Picard is just looking through the portal as if he can just telepathically can't do anything. He can't do anything, but he's determined to be there for whatever happens. And then she flies through the portal. Gates McFadden, pregnant, does the stunt herself, lands.
I don't think she knew though at the time.
I know. She did not know. She did not know. Yes.
She didn't.
And the portal closes, and Wesley collapses from the and he just runs past that baby bird and goes right to Mama Bird, and he's like, helps her up, and then they both embrace each other, really, but he never shows affection in public, but he is openly smiling. He's openly, if you look at the way that he looks at her when they move apart, he's just staring at her in awe that she's still there,
like she's
and
here.
then Beverly breaks it by going, oh, how many, she starts talking to the traveler.
Mm-hmm.
And then Picard's like, oh, we're in engineering. And he kind of,
it's like, oh, there's people watching us.
Yeah, but for a moment,
people forget that Geordi's in the engineering. He saw the whole thing.
Yeah, Geordi was right there.
He's all, yep, that's going
on. And Picard, I think that's really the most, to me, that's the most expression of how he ever felt about Beverly, like physically expressed by him, in terms of what we saw on screen, like that moment where he just was focused on her and was so happy and relieved that she was back. It was nice.
Yeah. So your last one, though, and this is a good one because
we just talked about it.
Our very first episode,
the police station scene in The Big Goodbye. I mean, come on, it's just fabulous, right?
It is.
Gates is looking fabulous. Picard's looking dapper. They look at each other. They're flirty. They're giving each other the eyes. They're ready to go back to his office and ... But then, Whalen and Data have to break that up. So, but again, awesome gift came out of it. The chemistry between them is crackling. This is more of a romantic thing in this one, I think. It's a little more flirty, but it's fun. I like
Casablanca moment. That's, definitely. Now, we do have an honorable mention. Because, so we again, we were struggling with our favorite moments, and we're like, we have to give this an honorable mention.
See, people, there's so many good Picard and Beverly moments. She deserves to. I'm so glad she's in Star Trek Picard because she is a huge part of his life.
She
and
is.
TNG.
And when you mentioned it, because this was your mention, this is why you're going to talk about it. But when you mentioned it, I was like, yes, we have to talk about this. This is so important, just because of how he reacted. And yes, please go ahead. I'm going to start talking about it.
Suspicion, stealing the shuttlecraft.
Yes.
So Beverly got all these scientists together. They're trying to figure out metaphysics shielding, which comes up in Descent, where she uses it to freaking blow up a Borg ship, by the way. But in this episode,
fact, though, the actor played the lieutenant and
he played the lieutenant in Descent.
So he's in both of the episodes of the metaphysics shielding. But anyways, go ahead.
So a descendant, perhaps. But the idea that Beverly breaks orders with Picard twice in that episode, right? She does the autopsy, she steals a shuttlecraft, and she's just like, no, I'm not bringing it back. And it's right after Lessons. Lessons was 2 or 3 episodes ago, where Picard couldn't put someone he was in love with in danger. And here Beverly is. That would never be a problem for her. She would put herself in danger. He would never have to order her because she would just do it.
She just did it herself.
She's flying into this sun. She's just going to test the shields and see if they work. And if she doesn't, she's going to die. And Picard's just looking out like he starts with Doctor. And then eventually gets to him saying her name, Beverly, on the bridge with everybody watching. And he is just like trying to hold himself together. And it's just like a really kind of wrought scene, but also Beverly gets to kick butt a little bit too, which I love. Great. She is action packed in that. So it's a fun, and then she's back and she's relieved. Picard's relieved and everybody's relieved. Troy's relieved. Troy was picking up on Picard's.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you could see that she was. Marina Sirtis did a great job there with their subtleties. But great scene, honorable mention for sure.
I just love. So when first, here's what I love about this scene. She takes off, and every single thing that Picard tells Worf to do this, Riker tells Worf to do. She knew exactly what they were going to do. Nope, she cut us out of the computers, of the controls. He's like, no, she's too close to the sun. We can't do a tractor beam. She was like, you're not going to be able to beam me out. You're not going to, I know what you guys.
It's like, I know how to pilot this thing. I'm not just a doctor.
And the thing too, though, is that when it started, the shuttlecraft started to get all fuzzy and she's getting too close. That's when Patrick does such a good job. His eye acting. You always mentioned his eye acting.
Love the eye acting with Patrick Stewart.
Where you could just see the blood drain from his face because that was when he started getting worried. And that's when he was all like, Beverly, what's happening? Because he's all like, I can't help you. You locked us out. and now we might lose you. And of course, when they did lose communication, he's just feeling helpless. And even when they thought, because Joe
He's
Brill's,
pacing. He's
he's
pacing on the bridge.
pacing.
Even Data looks worried.
Yeah,
There's
and of
some
course,
outtakes
spoiler alert, Joe
from the
Brill was
scene.
still alive, and she kicks butt and kills him. And at this time, though, Joe Brill, of course, wants them to think that the shuttlecraft was destroyed and they would leave. Well, Picard didn't do that. It was like, oh, there's debris that there was a warp core breach. And he's like, no. We're going to go over there and try and figure it out. He's like, he wasn't going to leave her behind. It's just a really good moment. Some people might even miss this moment just because, but please go back, look at that scene as a whole. His face, her face, she knows she disappointed him. And there was even a moment in the episode where she had to tell him that she went against his orders by doing the autopsy. And she had said, I know I horribly disappointed him, and that was the worst thing of all, So it's those moments that us fans have to grab onto, because we don't get very many of them. And yeah, it was definitely such a good scene. Now, our listeners, we have a lot of moments.
There's a long list. Buckle up,
long
folks.
list, yes. Mm-hmm. So we had 2 voted for the campfire scene and attached, the police station big goodbye. 2 voted for the mind meld and Sarek, the funny Picard laugh in the Naked Now, which would
those
be
are all ours.
mine.
Yeah. So,
yes,
so
yeah,
they matched up there.
They all match up. This was a good one. I'm still your friend from the host.
Oh, that is a good scene.
She, he was letting her know, I'm here for you. That was really good. The ready room scene and All Good Things. There was 2 people that voted for that. The breakfast scene and Perfect Mate. 4 people voted for that because it was just hilarious.
I feel like we failed them by not mentioning it. But it's important.
No. I mean, here's the thing. She put him in line, right? Yep. It was funny because he's like uncomfortable and she's like, no, this is wrong. And she basically got him thinking about it, right?
She challenged him and he changed his mind. Thought about it more because she could challenge him. That was, it was
such
somebody
a good
that
scene.
could do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. When he seeks Beverly's advice in Bloodlines, I had a couple people vote for that.
Oh yeah, the secret son that wasn't a son. Spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm. Which that kind of bothered me, but whatever. Staying to be tortured to protect Beverly and chain of command too. A couple people voted for that. When I first saw that scene, I actually rewound it because I was like, wait a second. He is not calling their bluff. He's literally rather die to protect her than think that they have her. And I was like, how does people not realize they love each other?
I think he would, to be fair, if it was Worf, I feel like he would have stayed for Worf, but I feel like there was an extra emotion to it because it was Beverly. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later down the list, I think.
But real quick though, it's Gul Madrid.
Yes.
That was his name.
Yes.
They had a little truth serum. And so I think they might have known his feelings and that's why they used her as a bait. But anyways, we'll go into
that. Where he was basically telling everybody the rank of Worf and Beverly.
Yeah. So that would be interesting. Now, finishing Galen's quest in the chase, which was a very important episode after Lessons, but she was there for him. They finished it. She was there for
their friendship again.
Yeah.
Beverly laying on his couch.
A couple of people said Beverly pushing Picard through the opening and attached. So when it was the force field, it opened. She shoved him in and to save him.
She she basically sacrificed her life for his. Mm-hmm. Like she was willing to do that too.
Yeah, she was willing to get caught. The late night conversation and cause and effect. So one of mine.
Yep.
The transporter pad at Sub Rosa. That was a very important episode. Everyone knows I love Sub Rosa. I will die on that hill and protect it because it's not a ghost love story. And I'm going to tell you that
she has died on it several times on Crusher Convo.
I'm still going at it. I am always amped up when it comes to that because
I think we're going to talk about that a little later, right?
A little bit, but the transporter pad itself was so impactful because she, like I always said, she dropped him a text, tried to run out before she saw him, and he caught her. And the raw emotion because she's seen it and you could see her eyes well up, but she's like, she had to go because she's addicted to Ronan.
And Picard there is, and
he's
again,
confused,
Sir
but he's all,
wonderfully.
So good. And the last but not least is when Troy tells Picard that Beverly was hit by a phaser in Timescape. I agree.
Yes.
So if anyone doesn't remember, that's when, the frozen in time and stuff, and Beverly had gotten hit and she had to go let Picard know, and he looked devastated that
because if they couldn't turn back time, then there was no way.
If time started, she was going to die.
Yeah.
But
they got fortunate there.
They did. So anyways, we're going to just jump right into our missed moments. And
what should have been and could have been.
Well, yes, exactly. These are our moments that we think we wish we saw had kind of resolution to it. This is where our headcanon comes into play, or even, Chris at Shelf Nerds, his micro treks. Thank you for helping us out.
Love the micro treks, Chris. Can't wait to have you on the pod.
Yes. Yep. So my top 3 moments. Arsenal of Freedom. It's in my top 5. Love Arsenal of Freedom.
This is a bizarre one.
Here's the thing. When she's all like, you need to she needed to be kept warm.
Keep the patient warm. Yeah.
That was a
basic first
Picard. Aid. That was a clue.
He's like, I'm just going to go over here and look for a way.
He's like, I'm going to go try and find. He's like, it was a clue. And he's like, I'm out.
He's awkward first season Picard here.
I know. But I was like, dude, she wants you to hold her. Not walk away.
She's like,
so mad.
Comfort, warmth would be nice as I'm dying.
That would be helpful. Yes.
But he was like, no, I'm just gonna go look. That's a good.
I got.
That episode is a really good one for Picard and Beverly, and possibly one of the reasons why she ends up leaving at the end of season 2 is he couldn't do basic first aid. I know, Jay, that scene bothers you. So
Jay, we're always going to mention that first aid for you, man. My second missed moment was we didn't get to see a reunion with Chain of Command 2.
What was up with that?
I have no idea.
Not important to the plot, right? Not at all.
She was the reason he was left behind. She did her job. That's literally Starfleet regulations.
She wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong. She didn't
abandon him. Let's just say that.
No, she knew they had to get out of here. So they had to do all that. Exactly. But she felt guilty. And you saw that in the sickbay scene. Yeah. She felt horrible. And then to even know that he did stay to be tortured to protect her because he wasn't sure. That would have been so important to see. And I would have loved to see that they got him back. She's in sickbay with him. Thank you again, Chris, for doing that micro check for me. Just so they can just have that resolve and him letting her know, like, it's okay. You did what you had to do. I'm glad you did.
And it didn't have to be a long scene. It didn't have to be overwrought, but maybe she's removing that device that they put in him. And there's just a look.
Exactly.
And like kind of like Chris wrote, go check out at Shelf Nerds his micro trek on Chain of Command. Because it's pretty much what we should have seen on screen.
And it's literally like this little section and it works so well.
Perfect. It would have been 2 seconds.
I would have just loved to see a reunion between that. Now, my last one, the high ground with no resolution. Yes. I have something to tell you.
What is it? What is it?
Anything?
Gates, what is it?
What happened?
Tell us.
I have no idea. Never got brought up. Nothing was
said this
mentioned.
Twice to him.
You guys have breakfast
know what it is.
all the time. Okay, well, the second time doesn't really count because she's talking to Warp Bubble Picard, but that's a whole other story. But the thing is that
she still said it.
She said it.
Yeah, there's something she wants to tell him. But I can tell you what I don't think it is, and I think there's another podcast that's doing a whole episode on this that I'm going to lose my mind over quietly. But I can tell you it is not that Picard is Wesley's father. I'm going to just lay that out there right now.
I know.
She did not cheat on her husband with Picard.
No.
The integrity.
That would make attached
Let's just put that out
not
there.
happen. Like then attached was a big lie. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Wesley is not his son. No.
Yeah.
No, we're not going down that road.
Yeah, that's
so,
not.
But
although who knows what they'll do. That's our feeling on Crusher Convo. The integrity of the characters. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think for this, I really wish it was even, they have freaking breakfast every morning. It wasn't brought up. Like, it's just, come on, stop.
Well, what is it? What do you think it is that she wants to tell him?
She fucking has feelings for him. Sorry.
There it is.
She's going to tell him. Yeah. I had to do it. I dropped it. I was trying to not do the F-bomb today, but I had to.
Right. It's all right. At Crusher Convo, we have the occasional F-bomb.
It's frustrating. Yeah. So, but she wanted to tell him. She was like, in case we don't make it out alive, I wanted to tell you I love you. That's it.
I think you're right.
That was it.
I'll go with it.
So, what are your top 3 missed moments, though?
Well, let's go to season 3's Allegiance, which is like, okay, so these aliens make a doppelganger of Picard using his memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like Picard if he didn't have all of his baggage, I guess, right? All of his hangups.
Right.
And he's like having a romantic evening with Beverly and they dance and he's like, this is what should have happened at the end of Attached, in my opinion. Like he just had to try just a little bit. If he just tried just a little bit, like there would have been, some romance. So, but the fact that Beverly keeps it to herself, we don't know if she ever told him. She gives him that look at the end of the episode where she goes, Captain, and he's kind of like, Patrick Stewart does the funniest engage, like it's great, it's perfect, but there is no real resolution to the fact that she finds out that he might possibly be interested in a more than friendship with her,
so she doesn't ask him.
And you know what, they discuss it very rationally in the episode, but then they also play on their feelings. So like you just needed to do that in Attached Picard and things would have been fine. But so that's one. Second, did you want to say anything about that?
No, I agree. It's just it's frustrating because it's a really great Picrusher moment. It doesn't have Picrusher in it. It's just fully one half because he had no idea. He was locked away somewhere. So it's frustrating. And then in this sense, she kept it to herself, right? She's not going to mention it because that wasn't actually Picard,
and he apparently didn't ask, so maybe he didn't want to know what
maybe
happened.
He was just like, that's weird, but you know what, okay. But
he's like, my double had dinner with you, okay, we're not going there.
I don't even think she went that far, so I don't know. It's frustrating.
I don't know what she put in the report. She told the crew she had a very interesting evening. So second one is Picard not addressing Beverly's concerns in Attached. So
how much do you love the ending of Attached, Michelle?
You
please
need to stop because I'm gonna get triggered. Basically, my feeling on the end of Attached is this is the lamest way to ask someone out that you are completely and fully in love with, that you like lied to for years.
To quote Jessi from Open Pike, why is Picard dumb? Yeah, that's what he said.
Why is he so dumb?
Why is he dumb?
Love Jessi. It's just shout out Jessi and Open Pike Night. But it's just like we've seen him romance women before, very well, maybe not very effectively, but like Picard is not the Kirk of the show, right? Like that's Riker.
No, right.
But he apparently was in his Academy days. But my thing here is he knows what like think about Odon in The Host and how Odon was romancing Beverly. Beverly, you're wonderful. You're like, he's telling her things he likes about her. He's like, this is why I feel this way about you. Like, you're amazing. You've been there for me. Thank you for being there. Like anything, Picard. Instead, he says, perhaps we should not be afraid to explore those feelings. Like how is that reassuring to her in any sense of the word, when at the campfire you basically lied to her and said you didn't have those feelings anymore, that you were in love with her but you didn't have those feelings, and you didn't even say that you were in love with her. She said it because whatever reasons. So I'm gonna, before I get fired up,
more fired up,
here's
your goat.
Picard shared a mind with her in Attached. They shared each other's thoughts. So he had to know she had misgivings. And he really didn't do anything to allay them. And then when she's like, perhaps we should be afraid, like she waited a beat. He didn't answer her. He didn't say anything. He
just shuts down.
Which is like typical. This is typical Picard. And then Picard season 2, Guinan really I feel like Guinan is reaming him in Picard season 2 for everything that he did to Beverly on the Enterprise. And how underappreciated she was by him personally. Maybe not professionally, but personally, So big problems with Picard in the end of that episode. And I really just think it's just totally on him that they didn't get together. Unless Picard season 3 is going to say that they did. I don't know. So this could all be retconned. No idea.
We'll find out. So what's your last one?
So this goes back to season 1. Great episode, really good episode in season 1 called Conspiracy, with those little creepy bug-like aliens that took over people's bodies.
That were
it was kind of like a little bit Star Trek 2-ish for those of you who like TOS. And in this, we meet Walker Keel, who apparently served on the Stargazer with Jack Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard. And apparently both Walker and Jack were his best friends. And he tells not Beverly, but Troy this after we learn that he met with Walker. Walker was telling him he had suspicions, goes off on a ship explodes with Beverly and Picard on the bridge together. And she's looking at Picard like, did we just watch one of our good friends die?
Yeah.
And then like Picard
great scene.
Picard doesn't address her at all in that episode. And Beverly ends up saving the damn day in that episode and saving Picard's life. Yep. And she comes in, she's firing phasers, she's making sure that Riker has the little spoilers thing on his neck for you know to fool the aliens and all that. And like, so basically in this scene or in this episode, they just don't talk about Walker, and they should have, because Walker introduced Jack and Beverly, right? That was the whole thing. Yep. He started, and in some sense, maybe Picard was like, oh, it's, it's great, but also not great for him because he was in love with Beverly, right? Yeah. So Beverly and Walker was probably there for Beverly when Picard wasn't. When Picard was on the Stargazer, not interacting with Beverly for 10 years before she requested the posting on the Enterprise, because it was very evident in Counter Farpoint they hadn't seen each other for 10 years. And we'll get to that. But yeah, that scene, that not talking about Walker or resolving anything about Walker,
just having a moment.
Not great.
What were we even saying? Like, it could be such a
Troy,
small
but not to
scene,
Beverly. Yeah,
and nothing.
Another reason why I think she left the Enterprise at the end of season 1 in canon. We all know the unfortunate reasons and the unfair reasons that it happened. Unfathomable reasons. And thank God Gates came back. We're very grateful for that.
But, I agree. It like I said, it could have just been a small scene just for them to acknowledge it. Just an acknowledgement. All they did was just cut, next scene, and I don't know. It's disappointing for sure. Now, our honorable mention, and this is what we're going to talk about, is why she left the Enterprise between season 1 and season 2. Now, of course, they say she got promoted to Starfleet Medical to run it, and then that's why Pulaski came in to be the CMO, and she left Wesley there to stay with Picard and Riker and them. In the first episode of season 2,
the child,
you definitely, yes,
not a great episode.
He's very upset that Beverly's not there. So it makes you wonder what happened, what came down to her to leave. Like, I'm going to take this posting. It meant a lot to her to take a posting on the Enterprise. So why would she just leave? And it would have been nice for them to say more about it. Now, of course, we understand Gates unfortunately was let go, and that is why they had to just create something off the cuff and figure it out. But I don't know, maybe if they kind of mentioned it later when she came back, like something to...
I think like they tried to just explain a way that there was no way she could turn down the promotion at like she's heading Starfleet Medical. She's probably the youngest officer to head Starfleet Medical. This is an incredible career move for her. She didn't intend to leave Wesley on the Enterprise.
She didn't intend. No,
everyone's like she abandoned Wesley. It's like no.
She didn't abandon people. Just
first of all, he was 16 years old, right, or something like that, and she was going to take him, 17. And he decided that he wanted to stay. Then he turns it around when she comes back. And I'm like, no, kid. And this is what kids do, right? But she intended...
I have a teenager, yes.
She intended to take Wesley with her. And then he wanted to stay. And she bravely, being a good mom, decided to let him go. And let the Enterprise care for him. She wasn't abandoning him. But I think that she left. Because if you look at like the last 6 or 7 episodes, you have Arsenal of Freedom where she almost dies. And Picard doesn't really do a great job there. You've got Symbiosis, where they're, basically trying to solve this problem where this one culture is giving drugs to another culture to keep them addicted and to get stuff from them. And And Beverly is fighting Picard on that. She's very disappointed with Picard at the end of that episode. She feels very conflicted. Then you've got Skin of Evil, where Tasha Yar dies. Another traumatic thing. Then we'll always have Paris, where Picard's old flame comes back, and Troy confronts Beverly on this. Yeah. And then there's Conspiracy, where Walker Keel dies. And then the Neutral Zone, where she gets sexually harassed by one of the Frozen guys. So I think by the end of that, Beverly was done.
Yeah. I'm out. No, I just wish they had mentioned something when she had come back, just to kind of, especially because they did decide to rekindle this friendship and really go for it, because the first season it's very awkward, right? Yeah. But when she comes back, they're very, very close. So it would have just been nice to have seen that come down. Now, we do have some listeners' missed moments. Why don't you go ahead and shoot out that list real fast?
So we have not letting Picard and Beverly alone in his office in the big goodbye. So Whalen and Data kind of butting in and not letting them have their moment was disappointing. Who knows what could have happened? Jean-Luc not knowing why they should be afraid and attached. So kind of like what I was saying, I think. Not kind of addressing that.
And 3 people voted for that.
Yeah. Beverly not knowing that Picard stayed behind to get tortured instead of her in Chain of Command, which we mentioned, which we don't know if that resolved or not, but we never see it on screen.
Right. Yeah.
Never talking about Jack Crusher's death. Ding, ding, ding.
We talk 100%. About this all the time on Crusher Convo.
So frustrating.
Jack, we're going to do an episode about Jack.
Jack's going to get an episode. Absolutely. Totally. It's going to tie into the Litverse as well, I think, because we never got a blessed thing about him except that, the holodeck scene and family, and then a little bit at Journey's End. But that wasn't even Jack Crusher. That was Traveler. So, but I think Jack Crusher is so pivotal in both their lives. Picard's best friend. Like, Jack's death, I think, really affected Picard's captain style moving forward and the way he withdrew from people. Yeah. And it took him a long time. It took him to All Good Things to get that back, I think. So never talking about Jack was weird. No talk of divorce from All Good Things. So we don't know if they ever talked about what Picard experienced, that they were married and divorced in this alternate timeline. Just frustrating. The whole "there is something I need to tell you" from the high ground, which Jessi mentioned. Incredibly frustrating. Maybe we'll get that resolved in season 3 of Picard. What was not funny? The
mind
reading in a
that was not funny. Yeah. What did he tell her?
What did Picard tell her? Yeah,
that's not funny. Yeah.
Yes. I just want to make sure she was paying attention.
I liked how they played it, and Gates and Patrick, son of a gun. How they just went off of each other so well, but it was kind of frustrating. As like, what did he say?
Yes.
So yeah, I get it.
And then end of the first duty. Which is where Wesley almost dies, right? To get a little resolution there between Picard and Beverly after that. Beverly should have been more involved in Wesley's decision making there and should have picked up that something was awry. I think the writers didn't really write to that, which was a shame. And then any scene between them and family, like, would have been nice, especially with the Jack Crusher mention. And there is a nice microtrek that I think it's a microtrek. Just kind of trying to resolve that, like when Picard comes back on the ship and he has a scene with Beverly where, we don't see that because apparently they didn't really value those things aside from like plot exposition, the emotional ties attached was pretty much it for us Picrusher fans.
Yeah. Oh, I really wish we did see more between them in family, because she clearly was going through a lot when she got Jack's stuff, and he was going through a lot after the Borg, and then his brother. And yeah, I do remember it was either a microtrek or it was just like a one-shot fanfic, but it was like them having breakfast together or something like that, or something.
Kudos to all fanfickers out there.
I know.
I just started to get into fanfic this year, and there's a lot of talent out there.
Yeah.
So thank you for fixing these things.
Yes, I know. Changing it to our head.
All those missed moments that you fixed. Thank you. Cheers.
So, of course, with our top episodes, we ended up, me and Michelle actually picked one episode to share. So we'll share that together at the very end. But why don't you go ahead and give us our honorable mention first, and then I'll give you my two, you do your two, and then we'll
so the honorable mention for top episodes, is this right?
Yeah.
Okay. Encounter at Farpoint. Yes, it's a rough episode. It's the first episode of TNG.
Yeah.
But I mean, those scenes between Beverly and Picard, when she first sees him, when they first see each other on the bridge, the acting is amazing. You can tell they haven't seen each other in a long time. You can tell something's up. And then when she challenges him in sickbay, when he comes to sickbay, and he's all like, I was going to request a transfer. And she's like, why? You don't think I'm qualified? Yeah. She requested that assignment, and he was trying to get her out because he couldn't handle his feelings. She didn't know that. And he's like, I hope we can be friends. And that's like the start, I think. And it kind of hiccuped in season 1, but that I hope we can be friends. I think that just plays through all of TNG, right?
I also think too, in season 2, he missed that friendship, especially when he had to go against Pulaski on a lot of things. He's like, why isn't Beverly here?
Well, Doppelganger Picard says that in Allegiance. I missed our friendship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that's what he was feeling. But even right off the bat in Evolution, which was the season 3 premiere, that connection they were having with each other was totally different than what we had seen in the first season. So definitely there was
I think if we briefly mentioned season 2, the season that wasn't for Beverly, I think you could see Picard very frustrated with Pulaski, even to the point where she didn't want him touching his heart. You know, why not? Because his heart belongs to Beverly. That's why, folks. That's why.
That's the whole point. Simple. The only one that could cut me open is Beverly Crusher.
That's right.
So my top 3 favorite episodes are So I'm going to go ahead and do my 2, and then I'll give it to you. Great. Attached, obviously. Come on. My favorite episode out of the entire series. I can watch this thing over and over. I think I've already seen it like 15 times. It's just so good. Patrick and Gates play so good. Jonathan directed it. So good. Like, it's just
Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's a Frakes episode.
And he understands their relationship. I think Riker and Jonathan Frakes.
And he actually really understands Beverly, because I believe it was Frakes did about 8 episodes, and 4 of them were heavy Beverly Crusher episodes.
Yes.
So that's just how it played out, but he just knew how to work with Gates. They're like this. It's great. Can't wait to see them in season 3 of Picard. But obviously, I love Attached.
And then also them just rescuing, right?
Oh, like, yeah.
She rescues Picard from the fight. Like, she's taking the lead in a lot of that episode, which I love too. Like, he's not rescuing her so much as they're rescuing, like, they're working together.
They're working together.
And a lot of times she takes the lead, which is cool.
Now, my second is Sub Rosa. Okay. If anyone doesn't know,
preach.
I believe this episode is Beverly being manipulated and abused by an alien, and he used her family line in order to survive. I believe he killed every single woman in her family, because, I mean, Felisa was only 100. That's pretty damn young in 24th century standards. He's feeding off their energy. He needed them to survive, and he was trying to use Beverly. The problem was she was in love with someone else. And of course, this just happened 6 episodes after Attached. So those feelings are still very raw. She's probably very, she's very, probably feels lonely, like she's going through a lot of emotions. So it was very easy for him to manipulate her. And because his energy totally worked well with her energy matrix, I guess,
her chemistry, her body
chemistry, her body chemistry,
her family line,
she became addicted to him. And so that's why a lot of those scenes, it looks a little uncomfortable, is because as an addict, it feels good, and she wanted more. And one of the things that addicts do, they decide to get rid of everything. I quit my job, I'm getting rid of all my stuff, I'm getting out of here because I need my drug. And that's exactly what she did with Picard. She resigned from Starfleet. She tried to take off. That transporter scene, he's like, this isn't like you. What the hell's going on? And she's like, I'm bouncing out. And when he decides to go down and see her, that whole scene of, he's like, there's something wrong here, Beverly. Like, I know you, and I don't understand what's happened. And he was persistent. He
He
didn't
clocks
give
it.
up. He clocked
Deanna
it.
doesn't. Picard does.
Oh my gosh, Deanna. And she's of course fighting because she wants that addiction, but she's fighting her emotions with Picard. And what was great is that what Ronan didn't expect was because her love for Picard is so important that when Ronan hurt Picard, she stopped. She was like, I have to save him. I can't. And she fought back and she destroyed Ronan and she just saved Data and even Geordi. Like she kicked ass. But the emotion behind it, because after she destroyed Ronan and he was about to invade her body, and let's just also add, probably traumatic of the fact that he used her grandmother's body to be animated to destroy. I mean, come on.
This is why I just can't watch this episode.
She had to be in therapy for weeks. Like that was just
just a trigger warning to those, who have experienced assault or anything like that. This is a sensitive subject. And Jessi and I have actually discussed this because we both watched this episode for the first time in recently, in the last couple of years. And for me watching this, it was incredibly uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It was watching Picard walk in on Beverly was it felt like the writers, it felt like very male gazy, but Gates' beautiful acting job in this episode. Jonathan Frakes did an amazing job directing. Absolutely. Again, another Frakes episode. Yeah. And I do think that the redeeming, what people joke about this episode a lot. But the thing is, it is a serious subject.
It is a serious subject. I think people forget that, because I was an adult and I saw it, I knew what the context really was. But if you were a kid, you're not going to think that she was being assaulted. That's just.
And she does say, "No, stop." And that's when I was like, "Wait a minute."
And I clocked, for instance, when I knew something was wrong was when she went in and she was in her quarters and she lit up the candle because she was trying to bring him back. She was tweaking. She needed her fix. And that's what it said in the script. It was like an addict needing their next fix. That's how she played it.
Right. And I think that the issue with the episode is that it gets played up and you can joke, I'm not saying people can't have fun. We have a lot of fun here at Crusher Convo.
Yeah, we do.
But I think that, if you look at Chain of Command with Sir Patrick Stewart and David Warner, you see the amazing acting there, and no one is trying to make a joke out of, because there's no joke to be made out of what Picard is going through when he's being assaulted.
His torture.
And it, the Sub Rose is a little different. It wasn't intended to be a serious episode. It was that kind of Harlequin, historical romance novel feel they were experimenting with, very overwrought, very, so they didn't take as seriously what they were writing, or maybe even realizing what they were writing, but they were writing. And again, they do this a lot with Troy too, right through Nemesis. They do this, and it's stop victimizing women. But what was cool is that Beverly Crusher here overcomes that. She's able to destroy Ronan and save the entire. She saves Picard, she saves Data and Geordi, and she saves the ship. So at the end of the day, people, I know Terry Metalis had tweeted that Picard season 3, the best TNG episode that exemplifies is Sub Rosa. Well, maybe it's just the fact that Beverly Crusher overcame a lot of garbage, a lot of trauma in her life. She overcame a lot of trauma and stepped up, saved her friends, and kicked butt.
Yeah. And that's also one thing that I loved about when she destroyed Ronan, is she just broke down crying, because it was all that emotion she was feeling, because she probably felt just guilty and ashamed. She couldn't believe that she got caught up in his energy and was addicted to him. It's just so many different things. And that's why I love it. Because I love what it's actually about, because I read the script and that's literally what they were going
for. And if it had just ended better with Beverly not feeling sorry for Ronan at the end and them not kind of saying it was okay. Scene. If they had just cut that last scene and ended with her kind of breaking down, I think it would have been better. But yeah,
I would have preferred. But it's also a reunion with Picard. That should also been an honorable mention about missed moments.
But again, like you said, her love for Picard is kind of what saves her. Yeah.
Great. Now, give me your top 2, and then we'll talk about our top 3.
All right. So, best of both worlds.
Yeah.
This is one of the ultimates, if not the best TNG episode. But parts 1 and 2, so cheating a little bit here. But Beverly goes on that Borg ship. She doesn't care. She's not scared. She figures out how to take out those light things that's kind of affecting the Borg. She is the first one to see Picard as a Borg, and she tries to go to him. And Data, if you watch, Brent Spiner does a nice job here. I love Brent Spiner and Gates acting together as well. He grabs her arm. Yeah. Data stops Beverly because he knows that it's dangerous. Yeah. And she's just ready to go to him and to do whatever she needs to do. And then when Riker says fire back on the Enterprise, I mean, that's an emotional moment. And then when they get him back, she's calling to him. She says, Jean-Luc, she's the one that brings him out of it. She's the first person that he sees. She's the first person he sees when he was assimilated on the Borg ship. And she is the first person that he sees when he comes back to the Enterprise. And he says her name, like, you know, Beverly, Crusher, Doctor, like in that voice. But you got to imagine Picard there is probably terrified that he's going to assimilate her. Right. Like there's a part of Picard that must have been in agony over what he might do to his friends. Yeah. And that whole scene in sickbay where she's working with Data to try to figure this out, and they're all going to die. They're all like on the verge of destruction, ready to self-destruct the ship. Her son is doing like the coordinates to drive them into the Borg ship, right? Wesley has to press the button. Again, Wesley Crusher is amazing. We love Wesley Crusher on Crusher Convo. And again, like he's awesome here. Not pushing that button too soon. And she's there for him. And then she deborgifies him, right? We did that. She pioneers Borg reclamation, which was hinted upon in Picard season 3. So that whole thing was she was so connected to him in that episode. And I think their friendship was solidified through her help in rescuing him and in his recovery, which we didn't see on screen, but which definitely happened.
Oh yeah, I agree. I make videos. Everyone has seen my videos. Even
you make awesome videos.
Yeah. And I love that scene when she just wants to go to him. She doesn't even care. Her life is in danger.
She anesthetizes him. She hyposprays him, right, to knock him out. Like she does what she needs to do. Like, she's brave. Yeah. And you know, but she puts, you know, she helps rescue Picard as much as Riker did.
What's your second one?
My second one is The Chase, which happens right after Lessons, which you'll hear our episode about that one. After Picard's little short-lived romance with Nella Darren. It was a nice episode because Picard is opening up to her in this episode about Professor Galen and how he was like a father figure and how the past is a very insistent voice in him, right? Very much about Picard, his love for archaeology, but he loves culture. He loves archaeology because of what it says about the human person. It's why he loves Shakespeare too, right? He's a diplomat. He loves relating to people. He loves philosophy. And he's talking to Beverly here about how he feels like he disappointed this man who was like a father to him when his own father he wasn't very close to. Right. So I love that part. And Beverly, like, she is on Team Picard here when everyone else is like, well, Galen died, but you know, and she's just there for him. She's like, we will research this together. We're going to figure out what he was trying to search for. And they find, what do they find? The origins of humanoid life and how everything's connected. They find this whole big thing together. It's this amazing scientific discovery that we never hear about again. And then she's kind of pep talking him in his quarters at the end of it all. And she's kind of saying, you know, things might change. Like she's
all relaxed. She's just lounging on his
She goes to him, you never know. You know, like don't worry. It wasn't a complete failure. And she's there for him as a friend. She's awesome here.
Yeah. Now, The Chase is such an important episode after Lessons, especially after what she went through and then even what Picard went through, even though he made the wrong choice. But, you know, you'll hear our episode about that soon. I'm going to say real fast our listeners' favorite episodes, and then we'll talk about our third.
Do it.
Because it was just from Kim and Melissa, and they both said the exact same 3 episodes. Attached, Remember Me, and The High Ground.
High Ground.
Yes. Yeah. It was interesting that they both chose that, but I think it was because how that the ending, right? The missed moment part. I think that's why they brought it up.
And now, Beverly kicks butt there. She's showing how she's a doctor first. She doesn't care about danger. She's always looking to heal people. And that's where she and Picard, she balances out Picard there, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we both chose the same episode for our third. So what was it?
All Good Things.
Of course,
Come
it's
on.
All Good Things.
Come
oh my God.
Now, Captain Crusher, Captain Beverly Picard.
Yes.
Picard and Beverly were married and divorced because Picrusher fans can't have nice things. That's what
we're not allowed to be happy.
We're not allowed to have nice things in the Picrusher fandom because they can't just be happy in an alternate timeline. They have to be divorced. But how they handled it was so mature. And I just love Beverly in the present timeline and in the future timeline.
And it's so great because the one thing about All Good Things, how I had mentioned from Attached and even Sub Rosa and then on, you can kind of see a little difference with their relationship.
Yeah.
And this was like the catalyst. This was the big moment right here. And when she found out that he had the defect in his parietal lobe, I could speak. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah. It's hard to say. These are fake. They're all fakey things, so it's fine, I guess. I don't know if that's fake, but it sounds like pseudoscience.
She was so upset.
Yeah.
And even, because he was all like, why do you feel like you're telling me like you just gave me my death sentence? And she's like, well, I was caught off guard. And then even in the ready room, again, another ready room scene, she's telling him, you need some sleep and all that. And they're being really cute to each other. But then he notices her eyes drop and her smile fades. And he's like, what is it? And she's trying to shake it off like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And he's like, no, it's not. And so then she starts basically sharing her fear that he's going to be living with a horrible disease. And of course, he's very it's going to be okay. And he's holding her hand. And it's such a sweet scene. And then that's when she decides to kiss him, which was so important because I think this was the moment where it's like, we got to stop wasting these moments. Like we've already wasted 25 years of how long it's been, 20 years. We can't waste any more. Like now I know this is going to happen in the future. And this, I think, was the point of why they decided to get married and then divorce later on. And even he had that smile, like yay, she wants to be with me. It was just so enjoyable. And then even
that
later
line
on,
that he says there, a lot can happen in 25 years. And she repeats it. It's so ironic because of Star Trek Picard season 3. So a little bit of spoilers for Picard season 3, but Gates has put this out there. Picard and Beverly haven't seen each other in 20 to 25 years. So apparently they do things every 2 decades. They have big emotional upheavals. Apparently. This is their thing, like every couple of decades we're going to get together again, see what happens. But yeah, that was, it's foreshadows, like, because now we're kind of in the All Good Things time, like when All Good Things would have been. Yeah. And so now we're going to get to see the reality of what happened in the prime timeline.
Him saving humanity.
And it really, All Good Things is probably one of the best series finales of all time. It's it really wonderful. It was so good. To see Beverly captaining the Pasteur and taking command and marrying Picard and then divorcing, but we don't really get an explanation for the divorce, but it seems amicable. But it's that's kind of up in the air. Maybe an honorable mention for a missed moment is why they get divorced. We don't know.
Yeah. We don't know.
But Beverly is just always driven to go out, and Picard was on his vineyard. And it's interesting. They're kind of in the same position in Picard season 3. Beverly went out, right? She's doing the Doctors Without Borders thing. Yep. Picard stayed on his vineyard. It always seems to come back to Picard and his vineyard, right?
Right.
And so in All Good Things, I love the way Beverly kind of, when he challenges her on the bridge, she puts him in his place, and she brings him into her ready room, and she touches his cheek, and she goes, if it wasn't you, we wouldn't even be here. Like, I'm doing this for you. She says, for him, we'll do this one last time. She puts her ship on the line. Her ship gets destroyed. And he's a jerk about it, by the way. I know he has Erobotic syndrome. I know he's not completely in control of himself, and there's a lot more going on. But he's not considerate at all to what she just lost possibly to a flight of fancy of Picard's, you know, like, so she is just, I mean, very strong, and their relationship, even though they're divorced, you could tell there's a lot of depth there, and there's still something there, like a friendship, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do with it in Picard season 3. But the kiss in the ready room, it's just, it annoys me that was erased, right? Because they went back to the beginning of the episode.
But he still remembered it. And here's my
But did he tell her? Did he tell her anything?
Did
he tell her they got married and divorced? Did he tell her they kissed? Yeah.
Here's my headcanon. I believe he did not, because he saw the look on her face. He saw how upset she was. And in his mind, even though I believe it was the wrong decision, but in his mind, he was trying to spare her that pain. So he doesn't say anything, which is what Picard does.
Yeah, and he does. They did say at the poker game that he told them, you know, went into detail about what happened to the other characters, like not to each other, not the you know.
Detail. I think it was more like that they
split apart, which is funny because it happened in Picard as well. In Star Trek Picard, they all separated again, and they were trying to not have that happen. But and it happened anyway.
There's still little differences because even when it comes to the timelines, and I even always mention this, that when, you know, you don't mess with fate. So because he changed the timeline, someone still had to die. So instead of it being Troy, it ended up being Data. And so there's those things, right? And of course, there might have been a relationship between Picard and Crusher, it seems like, with, you know, season 3. And where did that go? You know, so we'll see what happens.
And Q, of course, Q is so pivotal to both Picard and Beverly. Like, Q is a hot mention here. And was Q jealous of Beverly a little bit? Is that why he was always so sassy to her? We don't know. But I would say in all good things, like, he, you know, he shows Picard that future, so he sees that future. And then in Star Trek Picard season 2, he is doing everything to try to get Picard over his trauma so he can allow himself to be loved.
Yeah.
I personally think that love is Beverly Crusher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even Guinan knows that, and Q knows that. Like, it's just so.
No disrespect to Laris. I love Laris.
I
just think somebody had tweeted out, I wish I could remember who it was, my apologies, but it's more proximity than passion there, you know?
Yeah.
And they have their own friendship and their relationship, and I get that, but I mean, this Picard and Beverly's friendship and relationship goes back decades, and there's so much to it. And I get that there's a lot of baggage, and I get that Jack Crusher might be a big reason. People might be a little tentative, like, dude, I wouldn't marry my best friend's wife. It's a 24th century, and, you know, I don't think that Jack would mind. Like, I don't like the whole
be happy.
Yeah, and Picard has his hang up about it, and I get that, but that's something he needs to work through, you know?
Right.
And so all good things, amazing episode in general, but also a big Picard and Beverly episode. And I will say, I mentioned I was gonna kind of give a shout out to Larry Nemeczek, who we always have our Nemeczek It Out.
Yep.
Star Trek The Next Generation companion, revised edition with all the movies. And when he talks about it's not all good things, but he kind of references all good things a little bit, where they got them together just to kind of appease fans, but then they turned it on its ear and they had them divorced because, again, we can't have nice things. But he had to say about the Picard and Beverly relationship in general and why it didn't move forward. And this was in relation to Attached. But he was talking about Jerry Taylor, who was one of the writers, and she basically said in his book, like, where do you go from there? It starts to become a soap opera, and Picard would be sealed off from other stories, she explained, praising the Stewart McFadden chemistry, though. Also, it seems perfectly legitimate to me emotionally that two people who have gone that long without ever coming together, there must be a reason for that. And then it says, of course, fan demand for a Beverly Jean-Luc tryst would soon get tweaked and then some in the show's finale, all good things. So part of it was in terms of the storylines, and Gates has said this, Sir Patrick Stewart and the writers and producers of TNG that were moving to the movies, they wanted Picard, to be open for love interests.
Yeah.
And we see that in Insurrection with Anij. They didn't really ever pan out, you know?
Right.
it kind of undermines Beverly's character. So I think we're kind of moving
backwards.
to the movies now. Are we moving to the movie
so
portion?
I mean we're but I'm gonna finish that off because with her character they went backwards, right? Like they started going backwards and going back to how it was in the beginning. It just didn't fit well, and again, they didn't treat her character well in the movies, in my opinion. Of course, like in Generations, she had 6 scenes and 4 only had dialogue. Beverly Crusher was one of the most important,
and none of them were in the Nexus in his fantasy where he had a redheaded wife.
And it was so upsetting, especially there was also like not even one Picard and Crusher scene. Like, it was so disappointing.
Like they were on the ship together, and then she goes to the transporter room when he's transporting out to trade himself for Geordi, but she's just there to help Geordi. She doesn't.
There. Nothing.
And then First Contact, she got some awesome stuff, but in First Contact, she's undermined. Because she's not she should have relieved Picard of duty, like as the CMO, as the first officer on the ship.
Should have been the one yelling at him instead of Lily.
And there was no resolution to the fact that Picard almost got them all killed, because he wasn't acting appropriately. That whole thing.
It's funny because I know a lot of, and I'm not getting into insurrection. Do not even try.
we need to just say that Picard was wrong. to go after Anij there, right? Like, I mean, Gates has said for insurrection, she's like, so I'm just not going to react to this relationship at all. Like, not at all. I don't. And the director was just like, no, it's like almost like a standalone movie, right?
It is.
They didn't care about that, but Gates was aware of that. But they were like, Gates, don't play into that. And then in Nemesis, our entire storyline got cut.
So this is what I wanted to say. Her best scenes were in Nemesis. Now, not everyone loves Nemesis, and it was not the greatest movie. But the thing is that they had such great Crusher scenes, and it was gone. And I'm like, no. And here's the thing, because even though I know Patrick wanted to have Picard free, so then he would be able to be more range to his acting and all those abilities, but he played Picard differently in Nemesis. I felt, like the moment when she walks in to his, again, a ready room. What is it about the ready room? Comes in.
Well, he didn't have a love interest in that movie. He didn't have a female lead to play off of in that movie. So Gates was kind of
he didn't have
grounding
one in
him.
The first 2 either. The only one he had love interest was Insurrection.
Well, it wasn't a love interest in First Contact, but
because of Lily.
Lily is grounding that movie, and I think that,
but that
kind of becomes. But no, and I don't think it had to be a love interest, but it was like a strong female lead that kind of took over what maybe Beverly would have had if it had been like a TNG episode.
No, I know, but I'm getting triggered. But the thing is that with Nemesis is that
it's triggering. What can I tell you? This is what it is.
He looked at her and he smiled. And of course, the scene that
at the wedding, it was so cute. They went like together, and this is again why I thought they were married. Because if you watch Nemesis, you don't think Beverly's leaving that ship. Like you think that she's staying there, and they're going to be okay because Picard has Beverly still, even though Data just gave his life to save him. But no, in the cut scene, Beverly was transferring back to Earth to Starfleet Medical because Picard couldn't get his act together. Like, but that he's cut, so it's not technically canon. So it's
not
like
canon. No, but I loved that scene that they cut because it was the extended scene where she was all like, I've known you, I saw you take your first command, and I saw you hold Wesley when he was born, and all this stuff. And he kisses her cheek, and takes her hand, and they walk out, and I'm like.
Right? Like we couldn't even get that. And let's talk about, I mean, I think Wesley was an important part of the whole connection between Picard and Beverly, right? Because Picard did grow and mentor Wesley. So I think Wesley Crusher is important to mention here as well briefly, like a little PS. Because I think that he really challenged Picard too and challenged him to grow. And he even taught Picard something in Journey's End when he's like, you know what? Starfleet's messing up and I resign. Picard basically did the same thing in Picard season 1, right? We see the flashbacks. So I think Wesley Crusher was a little bit ahead of his time. And now we saw him in Picard season 2 as a traveler.
Former Wesley Crusher.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see where they'll be. I think this is a nice little segue, though, into what many fans have enjoyed for 20 plus years post Nemesis, which is the Litverse of the Star Trek universe.
Before you jump in, I want to add real fast as a new Trekkie. I have not hit my ear yet. I will soon. What's interesting about with Nemesis, and this is why I said, you know, I thoroughly actually, the story is like, but I enjoyed it because of how they portrayed the characters. And even though many of these scenes were cut, the way that Picard and Beverly had acted towards each other was very warm, very loving. And I could see this progress into like Picard going, you know, Data's supposed to live forever and we lost him. And I'm not going to waste any more time, right? Just like Beverly did in All Good Things. I'm not going to waste any more time. And she kissed him. Okay. So I feel like that was what the mindset was at this point. Now, of course, you guys had to get me into the books. And
books are awesome.
I got Destiny when I went to Star Trek Las Vegas, and I finished that series, which was
by David Mack.
Yes. And it was long, but I got through it and I liked it because Beverly and Picard are married and they're having a baby. And I was like, yes. And to all those people who there's theories about season 3, one of them being that she had a child. Okay. Now, two things.
We have feelings on this.
I'm going after you people. Who's like, she was too old to have a kid. 1, 24th century.
Yeah.
2, they clearly didn't read the books. 3, I got 2 words for you people. Lexana Troy. Thank you. I'm here all week. Lexana can have a baby.
DS9.
Yes.
DS9, yes.
I was all like, she's pregnant.
Troy has a brother, apparently. Yeah, I was surprised to see that too.
Spoiler alert. But the thing is, I'm all like, it could happen.
30-year-old show. Yes.
Stop. So those fans who say that, I'm all like, I'm just, stop it. The thing is that I had just got into Coda because you guys finally broke me. I'm on the second book.
This is it, man.
This is it.
Beverly and Wesley and Picard and their son, and it's amazing. So good.
Yes. And I liked that they gave a little timeline so I can kind of understand where they were going with it. So I heard all of it, got married, had Renee, all of it. So it is disappointing that clearly all this has been erased for Picard. And, you know, I'm a Star Wars fan. That is where my sci-fi started. I love Star Wars. It is my number one. Love Carrie Fisher. Leia was always my favorite. And of course, we had a huge expanded universe that got completely annihilated when the movies came out. And so I understand the pain, especially when you lose pivotal characters that were so important. Right. So that's kind of
characters that were created in the Litverse that we never saw.
So important. And so, you know, that's just kind of like disappointing, but how All Good Things and the movies and the Litverse play in, it blended really well. And that's just kind of what I've been noticing. So you have extensive notes on this. So I'm going to pass it over to you, but because you've like read way more books than I have. I'm still
not many more, surprisingly. I have a suggested list for Picrusher fans, but
okay.
But yeah.
Oh, but I did read Death in Winter too. So that's
you did. That was the first one we broke you in with.
I did.
Because Death in Winter is technically like that's kind of what kicks off the post Nemesis Litverse is Death in Winter. Beautiful cover with Picard and Beverly. Because apparently Picrusher fans aren't the only ones that thought they're the little ship that should. The authors.
One quick thing. Great shout out to David Mack.
Like, yeah, we're gonna do that. Yes, David Mack.
Absolutely.
All the authors, but yes.
All of them, but I definitely am like, I like you. Okay.
We'll talk about him in a second. Yes. So the authors also thought they were the little ship that should, and they did, because the creatives, Star Trek had to sign off on this. This is officially, this is official stuff. So
right.
They decided to finally pull the trigger on Picrusher after decades of dancing around it or downright ignoring it. And they built on that deleted scene from Nemesis where Beverly was going to Starfleet Medical, and they had the book Death in Winter where she goes undercover. She encounters Sela, who is Tasha Yar's daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And there is a whole thing with Jean-Luc having to rescue her. But she really rescues herself. And at the end of the book, they decide not to waste any more time. There's some questionable scenes in there, but in terms of the ending, like Beverly does pull back a little bit before she finally decides to move forward. But it is honest, and it kind of looks at both of their feelings toward each other. And then they eventually get married, and they have a son. And the son's name, this is it's Rene Jacques Robert Francois Picard. Don't ask me about the Francois, but obviously Jacques is for Jack and Robert is for his brother Robert. And then Rene, of course, is his nephew. So Robert and Rene died in a fire, and we all know Jack Crusher died in an accident under Picard's command, which I think is the first time we said that during this conversation, but it's pretty well known. Yeah. So, the understanding was that Patrick Stewart did not want to do Picard anymore, and they weren't going to get any more TNG stories after Nemesis. So a lot of fans considered this Litverse their canon, right? Yeah. And it was awesome and had amazing authors that are still writing for Trek now that they've started a new Litverse timeline with the Prime timeline, right? Yeah. So you have Uma McCormick, you've got like a lot of great writers. But because of Star Trek Picard, there were some casualties, like you said, and sadly, one of those casualties was the Picard and Crusher relationship. But we don't know. Picard season 3 may retcon that. But right now, Picard did not appear to have a relationship with Beverly up to this point. So we don't know what's going to happen. But many fans, especially long-suffering Picrusher enthusiasts, considered these novels to be canon. It was kind of devastating that these things were ripped from us, including beautiful moments with Picard and Beverly becoming parents and still working together, still being on the Enterprise, still captain and CMO. And it's working, and it's beautiful. Watching Picard become a father was probably some of the most beautiful scenes that played in my mind from TNG. There's some of my most favorite moments are Picard holding his son, looking out at the stars, stargazing with his son, or with Beverly, when they're fighting about whether or not to become parents. And Picard is like, kind of, I don't know if I want to do this. And Beverly is feeling like the distance with Wesley because he's a traveler now and she doesn't really see him anymore. So, their relationship built their characters, and I have some suggestions for Picrusher fans. Or if you're not a Picrusher fan, I encourage you to view these episodes we're talking about, view the literature. Maybe it'll change your mind. But Q Squared was great. This took place before the movies by Peter David, and it included a mirror Jack Crusher. And there's some real Picrusher stuff in there. You got to check that out. But it has Q and Trelane, and it's a whole thing. It's kind of timey-wimey. Then you have Death in Winter by Michael Jan Friedman, which we talked about. Great book. Q Are Cordially Invited is an interesting book. It kind of is almost outside that timeline because it doesn't quite line up with what the main books are talking about, but it's a fun novel about where Q gets involved in Picard and Beverly's wedding and tries to bring Vash into it, and it's a whole mess.
Oh gosh.
But a really good book is called Greater Than the Sum by Christopher L. Bennett, where Picard is really struggling with Beverly's suggestion that they have a child. And there's a big Borg plot line, and Guinan just whips him into shape, kind of like she did in Picard season 2, with some words of wisdom, and challenges him about the way he's treating Beverly and approaching their relationship. She's Team Beverly, as I always thought Guinan was. Destiny Trilogy by David Mack. Again, Picard with the Borg, they finally wrap up the Borg storyline. Yeah. And then he decides he wants to be a father, and they conceive Renee. Losing the Peace. You have a lot of flashbacks to Beverly becoming a mom for the first time. Her relationship with Jack is really kind of laid out here. They have a lot of flashbacks to her first relationship with Jack, learning about Jack's death. And she actually, in that timeline, decided to leave Starfleet for a period of time in between Jack's death and her being on the Enterprise. And Walker Keel was an important factor in bringing her back to Starfleet. So that was cool.
I like how they bring those characters in to play.
Because they see it. They see the continuity. You have the Typhon Pact Paths of Disharmony. There is Renee is born, and they're parenting, and it's adorable. Lovely scenes. The autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard the Typhon Pack was by Dayton Ward for that.
Okay.
And then the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard by David A. Goodman and Russell Walks. That was published in October 2017 and seems to be written outside of the post-Nemesis novel continuity because it doesn't really follow that line. It kind of is its own thing. And it also is not really the Picard timeline either because it was written before Picard was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They have some fun like Photoshop pictures of like Picard and Jack, and they have Picard and Beverly's wedding invitation because they still got married here. And I think Renee ends up marrying Riker and Troy's daughter from the novels, which was interesting.
I have heard that, yeah.
And going to Utopia Planitia and doing like just being a civilian. So but that novel is interesting. It seems like Picard and Beverly they're still married, but you could see like the strain of Beverly being out doing her own thing and Picard being on the vineyard at that point. But that's kind of outside of this whole Litverse timeline a little bit because it doesn't really follow that. So then you have Coda, the Coda trilogy by book 1 by Dayton Ward, book 2 by James Swallow, and book 3 by David Mack. Mm-hmm. And this highlights the Crusher family in such a wonderful way. You have the Wesley Crusher starts this thing and it just doesn't stop. The train doesn't stop for 3 books.
Oh my gosh. I was like freaking I was all like, Wesley's chapter 1.
They bring back the aliens from what was that episode? The season
that 6? Was the Times Arrow.
Yeah, Times Arrow aliens come back. They're the big bad.
Which I was at first when I was because I'm audiobook. Okay. I have a hard time with reading but I'm at work, I'm listening to it and everything. When they were telling me about they're called the Talarians or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why does that sound familiar? And then all of a sudden they had mentioned San Francisco 1890, whatever. And I went, oh, it's those soul-sucking things. I was like, what the hell?
When the TNG cast became an acting troupe.
Yes.
And Picard and Beverly were dressed wonderfully in
cosplay. I thought it was cool because there's that continuity. They grabbed something from the past, which I believe that's going to be kind of also in play, not with these aliens, obviously, but kind of play in Picard season 3, just from what Terry has talked about. That, something in the past happened, and that's why we got Vadic. But I thought that was kind of interesting because I was like, oh wow, they're just really pissed off aliens and they're going after everybody. So I'm only in the middle of book 2.
Yeah. So there's spoilers for this book. Beverly Crusher is incredible in this series.
Yeah.
She saves Picard from the Borg Queen at one point. She goes back for him and she is just kicking butt, taking names, and their son Renee is almost killed. Again, spoilers for this book. He is aged up by these aliens that their touch like evaporates you, but he's aged up to like 20 something. Yeah. And like Wesley, him and Wesley have wonderful scenes. And Renee kind of comes into his own and is the last scene. I don't want to spoil it for you, Jessi, but it is Picrusher gold. And it also like, I know you don't care about spoilers, but I will say this. At the end, it does involve the Picard from the Litverse timeline kind of going through other timelines that the other Picards are in, and he kind of lands and kind of ends in the Prime timeline with Picard on his vineyard. And it's pretty beautiful because it's like maybe there's a small part of that Litverse Picard in Prime Picard now. Like the one that got married. Was totally in love with Beverly Crusher and had a son.
Interesting.
And Picard is so watching them married and having these conversations, the emotion. I wish we could have seen or heard Patrick and Gates playing these things.
Because we would have died.
So wonderfully
it would have
written.
Been beautifully to watch these two play these.
David Mack has been so upfront about it was disappointing to have to undo 20 years of hard continuity work.
Right.
They did. But, they did it. And the one thing, he's great. We've tweeted at him a few times. And I remember back last year, I think back in March, I had, when Picard season 2 was coming out, I was kind of like, where's Beverly? Because we didn't know Beverly was coming back yet. And here's season 2. We're talking about all of Picard's loves and why he can't have a relationship and nowhere to be seen. And I was kind of tweeting about it. And then I think some other people were tweeting about it too, because it was.
Yeah.
And David Mack said this on Twitter. He said, I think one of our key conceits in the literary continuity of the last 20 years is that Dr. Crusher is Picard's touchstone, his moral and emotional compass. So all of the bad things that happen to him and the universe in the canon continuity, I blame on him not marrying Beverly. Same David Mack. Same. Follow him at David Allen Mack for more hot takes, because not only that he knows these characters as well, and I wish they would let him write for the on-screen versions. I know he was a consultant for Prodigy, I believe, so he was a little bit involved in the new stuff.
When you shared that tweet with me and it said touchstone, I just instantly went back to X-Files. Like,
my touchstone.
Oh my gosh,
she is. And I think that sums it up so well. Why?
But it was true.
Picard
it was
and Beverly
absolutely true. When I saw that, I was like, oh man. He's like, just so you know, David Mack, we would totally have you on Crusher Convo.
Come on, let's do it. Let's talk about Coda.
Oh my god.
Beautiful swan song that you gave us Picrusher fans.
I gotta
because the relationship was ripped from us.
Yeah.
In Picard. We'll see what Terry Matalas does in season 3, though. Cautiously optimistic.
I feel good, but yes, I understand.
You go ahead and feel good.
So I'll do it for both of us.
I have been, you see what they did to Crusher fans for the last 35 years. You get your hopes up, like, oh, look, they're married and all good things. Oh, look, they're divorced.
Oh, they're divorced.
Yeah. Oh, womp, womp. Very easily can see them doing that to us here somehow.
So here's the thing. This is kind of a good segue. Our final thoughts here.
Yes.
Is going to be talking about season 3 of Picard. I've mentioned this lots of times. I truly believe that Terry is going to be fixing a lot of these issues. However, because how other writers and things like that wrote these stories, there's only so much room he can do. But I feel like we're going to be getting the scenes that we were deprived of this whole time. And I think Gates and Patrick are going to eat this up. And because Gates is so excited, it makes me excited. Now, of course, there's so many theories out there. There's a son, there's a daughter, there's no children. There's, it was her fault. It was his fault.
It was not her fault. I will unequivocally say that.
I'm just saying,
if they try to make this her fault, I'm gonna be
calm down.
Fired up.
Let me finish.
Fired up on our.
But the thing is let me finish. But the thing is that there's just so many different theories out there, and so we'll just see how it goes.
We will.
But I think like I said, I think with Gates being so excited about, because she says this is the best that they've ever written Beverly, I'm excited. I'm super excited.
She said that Beverly has finally come to fruition here to what she was promised
when
she originally took the role.
Yeah.
And she says that she takes action. I can't wait to see Beverly Crusher. To me, Crusher, the Beverly Crusher stuff is like its own thing. And then Picrusher is like another thing. So I have no doubt that Terry Matalas has well served Beverly Crusher as a character.
Right.
Picrusher, I'm not sold on that yet. I don't know, because we see him have lovely scenes with Riker, lovely scenes in season 1 with Data. They really, those friendships are important. But, his female friendships are just as important, too. And just because there was a little bit of romance involved, it doesn't mean it's a soap opera. And it doesn't mean that he shouldn't be just as, if not more, affectionate with Beverly. Now, I get there was a 20 to 25 year thing and something big must have happened. But, if she was going off helping Doctors Without Borders and he was sitting on his vineyard sulking, I don't think that's Beverly's problem or fault. And I just don't
I agree.
Yeah, I don't want her to be like the lame duck in the relationship where Picard becomes like a victim, because he already has gotten over that. He's apologized to Raffi and Elnor. He's taken responsibility for pushing people away. And I think he owes an apology to Beverly Crusher. Again, I don't know, but I think cautiously optimistic on Picard season 3 because we've been burned so many times.
Right.
And I think that Beverly will be awesome. I think Gates McFadden will be amazing, as she always is. And I think that Picard will be awesome. I think their scenes are going to be the best we've ever gotten. But I don't know if we're going to get the resolution that we necessarily want or need. So I'm just going to kind of taper my expectations on that front because there's appears to be a lot more than the show is way more than Picrusher and Picard and Beverly.
Absolutely.
I get that.
Everyone is back. We want to see all of their stories. I totally
understand plot.
that.
Like we care about plot here.
So
we're
important.
not like just just
10
going
episodes
after
of Crusher. Yes.
Yeah, we're just not shippers. We're more than that. We get that Star Trek is a message.
It's just more as
so
that we want a resolution to their story. No
like
matter
a good
what that
good
like.
resolution would be nice.
Resolution.
We've talked about character deaths. I'm not into some of the possibilities that have been thrown around here.
You what?
I'm not into the possibilities that have been thrown around here.
Like my possibility?
Yeah, I'm not so much into that.
No. Should I say about my possibility?
I mean, I don't know. These aren't spoilers. They're just
not
speculations.
Spoilers. They're just speculations. I really
haven't seen it. We have not. Crusher Convo has not gotten any.
No, we're not that special.
Any invites. We're not special, so don't worry about it. And nor do I expect us to be.
No. We just start after our second episode. We're going to get invited over to the premiere. No, that's fine. The thing is
too nervous
that
anyway.
I believe Picard's going to die. I really do.
And I think that's not cool.
I think that
I'm not saying it's not going to happen.
Whatever happened, this is my theory when it comes to the Picrusher dynamic. Whatever happened between the two, even if they have a son or not, that's not even a case. But I feel that they start to grow closer together. They start to rekindle that romance. They start to admit of how they feel about each other. I believe that Picard would apologize to her. But because of this situation with Vadic, he decides to sacrifice himself in order to save her, and not only just her but the crew. Okay,
which to me is predictable and has been done before, and I'm just not into it. But it's very possible because again, it's the last season of Picard, and Sir Patrick Stewart's probably not. We don't know if he's going to come back to the role or not. But again, time wise, But I will say this: like, can't Picard and Beverly just be happy? Like for 1 second, like, can we get?
But I think
can Beverly has been through so much trauma.
I know, she's never.
So we have to watch her lose Picard after he's already died in season 1.
Now, question: what if they died together?
See that again? I don't want Beverly Crusher to die because I want more of her on Star Trek. But this is what we were talking about this before we started here. I have always felt that they make each other better as characters. And it felt very strange to me to see Picard in the first 2 seasons without Beverly Crusher. And in the same way, and it's not that they're like dependent on each other, but to me, they're like Mulder and Scully to me.
Yeah.
Didn't care for Scully without Mulder or Mulder without Scully. I just like them together. And I might be in the minority, and I do want more Beverly Crusher. I think you can have them maybe go to another place together. I think in one of the interviews at Comic-Con in July, they said, Sir Patrick Stewart said, where we've gone to. Yes, they should go wherever they should go together. And if that means they both go out in a blaze of glory, then to me, it would be a satisfying end to their story. I hate that it would squash the possibility of more Beverly, but I also feel like Gates McFadden's really busy too, doing really awesome stuff, like her Investigates podcast and some, other projects that she has, and she loves theater and she's doing other acting gigs. So, I mean, I would love that whatever happens, that it happens for them together, so that one doesn't have to be left kind of hanging or emotionally traumatized. Think about the end of Star Trek, the motion picture, maybe, for those of you who have seen the motion picture. I know that Aaliyah and Decker were kind of Riker and Troy, but maybe they're more Picard and Beverly at the very end, not the whole movie, just the last scene. Like maybe something like that happens, but I don't know. It's
just me just nodding and smiling because I have no idea.
Yes,
what you're talking
this is the thing. You have to watch
it's fine.
POS movies. But I really, they also are referring to Wrath of Khan with Picard
which I think 3. That's why the sun thing.
She's got the jacket that like Carol Marcus had. I mean, he's got and I think I'm okay with them having a kid. It would actually be nice if they had a kid.
I want them to have a kid.
It has to be done very carefully. Depends. It has to be done very carefully, where Beverly's integrity is not destroyed because she like hid a kid for no reason. it better be a good reason. And Picard better not be harping all on it, because she probably hid the kid because he was being ridiculous as he is.
Right.
Like he was absolutely ridiculous when we met him in the first season of Picard. He was just, would you want that for your child? I don't know. Like, and again, isn't it Beverly's decision?
Yeah.
Ultimately, if she was pregnant. So.
Yeah, and we don't know. Like, maybe she was trying to get a hold of him and he ignored her. She's like, I tried. That's what I always said. She's like, she tried and he ignored her. And what is she going to do? So we'll
he
see
didn't
what
follow
happens.
her. He didn't
follow
go after her.
Never kept in touch.
Son or daughter of Picard and Beverly, what I would hope the kid would know is that, they both would love him or her, but at the same time, Picard, he didn't. Again, it was like attached.
That particular ship.
He let her go.
Yeah.
Whereas, like,
I watched it go.
He could have followed her. He could have helped her. He could have made a difference, like she was. He could have gone out, and he gave up.
He did,
and it could have been because he knew about his. I don't think he knew about his illness at that point. I'm thinking the split happened around the Mars attack.
The brain condition, but because
I don't know
the timeline, they don't know what the disease was.
Yeah, but there was no guarantee that he was going to get it. There was no guarantee. So, like, when she left, I don't think he was sick. I don't. Yeah.
No. I don't believe he was sick.
So I'm interested to see again, like through the lens of Picrusher, where this lands.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And we'll just have to. But I love angst. I love drama. I just want to have it, whether they're apart or together or they die together, whatever happens. I just want it to make sense, and I just want it to be good. Of course, if Picard doesn't die, I think Worf is another possibility, and possibly Riker. But we'll see what happens. Now, with Picrusher, I had asked Michelle and to pick a good Picrusher song that would represent these two. And of course, mine is, I had to think about it, because like I do a lot of videos, and so I hear a song and I'm like, oh, I know.
We always like we have a Picrusher playlist. There will be a podcast about songs that kind of mirror their relationship.
I picked Chasing Cars from Snow Patrol. Nice. And it was kind of funny because I was kind of going through the different songs, and I have like different songs on YouTube and things like that. And this one just so happened to be playing last week on the radio. And I was like, oh, this is such, I remember this song. I love it. Then I was listening to the lyrics, and it just kind of popped to me. I was like, this has to be my Picrusher pick. And, I have some of the lyrics here where it was like, would you lie with me and just forget the world? I don't quite know how to say how I feel. Those 3 words are said too much, but they're not enough. And it's just certain things, the way that he's, it's such a very, very passionate song, but it's also a very sad song. And so I felt I think there was even one, forget what we're told before we get too old. Show me a garden that's bursting into life. Let's waste time chasing cards around our head. I need your grace to remind me to find my own.
It's what she does. That's what she does.
That's exactly it. And so it was just perfect in and I even like it where it says is in your perfect eyes, they're all I can see. Yeah. Because Beverly is perfect, especially in Picard's eyes.
We love the eye acting on Crusher Convo. I mean, one of the things that really sold me on Sir Patrick Stewart's portrayal of Picard was his eye acting. I constantly say that.
You always
sound strange. But Gates McFadden too. Amazing.
The emotion behind their eyes. Yeah. Even Gates. It's funny how I noticed this, and it's just because I watch the same scenes because I love him. She always like the corner of her mouth kind of goes up a little bit as she's trying to hold back emotions. And so, when you see that little, it goes up, I was like, oh, she's emotional. Like we're having a moment. I mean, it's
very natural. She's great at subtle acting. I think that because of the way she was written sometimes in TNG, Beverly Crusher gets a bad rap. And she doesn't deserve it. Like Gates portrayed her. Because of how Gates portrayed her, that's why Beverly Crusher is so amazing. Exactly. And because of the chemistry between Sir Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden, that's why we love Picrusher. If they're recast, I don't know how I would feel if I would feel the same. I would assume If it's the same storyline, I would. But again, it wouldn't be the same. So it's nice that we're going to get them one last time. But awesome song pick. I love Snow Patrol. Did you have anything else to say on that song?
No, it's kind of funny about your pick.
So. Yeah. So I knew that I didn't
just
know.
So we didn't talk. We did not talk about
as many things in Crusher Convo. We like to be surprised.
We like to be surprised, and thoughts. Somehow great minds think alike, and this is why you're my co-host. So go ahead.
Yeah.
What is
we have a lot of similarities. So my pick, I was actually going through my YouTube playlist, and this song came on, and I said, this is definitely Picrusher now. Like, this is Star Trek Picard season 3 Picrusher. And it is Snow Patrol. You could be happy. Every lyric in this song is how Picard must feel right now.
Right.
You could be happy and I won't know, but you weren't happy the day I watched you go. And
watched you go.
Yeah, that ship has sailed, as he told Guinan. This should have been playing in Guinan's bar, is all I'm saying in season 2.
That would have been great.
And all the things that I wished I had not said or played in loops till it's madness in my head. And is it too late to remind you of how we were? And then it goes on to say, I should have stopped you from walking out that door. Attached, and whatever happens before Picard season 1.
Yeah.
And then he says, you could be happy. I hope you are. You made me happier than I'd been by far. She made him, she gave him grace, like your last song said, but she also made him so happy. Like he could be himself with her and not be afraid. And he could rely on her. And then he says, do the things that you always wanted to. He says, the song says, do the things that you always wanted to without me there to hold you back. Don't think, just do. More than anything, I want to see you, girl, take a glorious bite out of the whole world. He just wants her to be happy and to be like kicking butt, doing her own thing.
It seems that's what Beverly's doing.
Yeah, which is what Beverly's doing. So I think it really is a nice song to kind of segue into Star Trek Picard season 3, and maybe where Picard was at in season 2 when he was talking to Guinan, because I definitely think that Beverly Crusher was a big part of that conversation. And when he says, I care very deeply, I loved very deeply. Yeah. I think that's Beverly Crusher.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And her picture was in Guinan's bar in the last episode.
Oh my god.
Her and Guinan, the promo picture, right above Rios' photo. Was it was not mentioned, it was not referenced, but you could see it.
But it's there.
It was there, foreshadowing. She is always watching over Picard.
So here's the thing. As a new Star Trek fan, my husband had been I've known my husband almost 20 years. The day he met me, he's like, have you seen The Next Generation? It's the best show. And it took him 18 years for me to watch it. And of course, it's just because I'm not a Trekkie. I never grew up being a Trekkie.
But you are a Trekkie now. You're official. You've accepted it.
I've accepted it. But growing up, I was never a Trekkie. And of course, my dad liked the original series. He's a big Bones fan. Loves Scotty. Good dad right there. And my mom did see a few of the movies, but it just wasn't in my house. And even when The Next Generation came out, I was 2. So of course I wasn't going to watch it. So if they weren't watching it, I wasn't watching it. And my mom didn't want to watch. She's like, there's no Kirk and Spock, so I'm not going to watch them. She was one of those.
That was my reasoning.
Yeah.
It was sad. It was not good reasoning.
It wasn't good reasonings and things like that. But what's funny is that when my husband, I got him the Blu-rays for Christmas and he started watching it, and I was like, oh, look at these characters. I might actually watch this. I thought I binged this in only 30 days. Apparently I did it a lot quicker. Because when I went back to my tweets, I literally did it in like 20.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like 3 days
longer to get through DS9, didn't it?
It did.
We did like DS9, by the way. We'll talk about that another time.
We did like DS9. It's just that's a whole other story. But the thing is that as I got into it, I was all like, the stories aren't great, but the cast was perfect. My husband always said that. Story's not great. Cast
in
is
season
perfect,
1. In season 1.
And
although there are some good ones.
There are
in season
some.
1.
Yeah,
I don't poo-poo season 1.
Throughout the series, there's some good and bad ones, right?
Yes,
now, with my husband, he was always just saying the cast is perfect, which makes TNG the best. Even though he loves DS9, he just rewatched it. He absolutely loves the stories. but he didn't have a connection with the cast as he did with The Next Generation. So, of course, my whole 2020 was watching Star Trek for the first time, going to Vegas, meeting Gates McFadden, meeting Denise Crosby, meeting Jonathan Frakes, meeting Melissa Navia, watching Strange New Worlds. I mean, I'm just going off the whole.
You have dived into the deep end of the Trek fandom, and you have dragged me gratefully into
reading the books,
this wonderful podcasting world.
Which I've been telling people, you know, as much as our podcast just started on January 1st, which was with Open Pike. Thanks, guys. Yes. We've been doing Crusher Convo since July 30th, which was right after Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con.
You were excited.
I was super excited. Yeah. I wanted to give out my theories, and then people started joining in. I was like, oh, let's talk about episodes. And it just kind of went off. And it wasn't until the Beverly Crusher day where I was like, I think this is something that people really want to hear and talk about and express their feelings and their frustrations and how Beverly was so important to them. Because as much as people thought that it was like Picard, Data, and Riker, honestly, it was Picard, Data, and Beverly. That was really the top 3 favorites that I've seen in all of this, which is why I made the I Love Beverly Crusher video for the fans.
She doesn't get a lot of credit, and she's often left off of merch. The biggest burn I had was when I got the Blu-rays, and she wasn't on the box set.
She wasn't on the box set.
It's like they just could only fit 6. I don't know. But it's the excuse being that she wasn't in season 2, but the reason she wasn't in season 2 was like misogyny. So maybe
it just makes sense, you know.
They leave her off a lot of merch. Gates even acknowledges that. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because she is remembered, and I know you love Sub Rosa, but I do think that has affected how this character is portrayed.
It does, and
maybe the wrong perception of that episode.
Correct.
And just the movies really made Beverly Crusher kind of a non-factor in Picard's life. In a way, in the movies and as a character, which is what I thought bled into Picard season 1. I really thought it did. Like, they didn't even think to mention her, which kind of works out for Picard season 3. And I'm not trying to get on the writers for that, but she's Beverly Crusher. Like, this is an important character in Picard's life.
They mentioned Riker, they mentioned Worf,
and Geordi. Troy was there. Data was the central figure. He was on the Enterprise D in his dreams.
It just doesn't make sense to not even have her mentioned. And I think
people thought she was dead. You remember the fandom was freaking out because everybody was like, Picard's gonna like go to her grave on the Vineyard. There were fans that were actually
I don't know. When season 1 came out, I wasn't watching it. My husband was.
It was rough.
And I had no idea who the hell these people were. Thing was, though, is that I believe, and again, nothing against the writers or anything like that, but everyone who is part of this Star Trek, whether it be writers, producers, showrunners, however you want to look at it, they need to understand that Beverly Crusher is an essential part to the Star Trek universe. No matter.
They do now.
I think they do now, but it seemed to have taken a while. I mean, we're not even the only Beverly Crusher podcast out there, right? We have Where's Beverly, who started it because it's like they're not mentioning, and they're going to be part of Picard Week.
Yes. And we forgot to mention them at the top of the hour.
Yeah. And of course we have What's the Tea, Bev? You know, his podcast isn't Christoph is not essentially about Beverly, but he named it after her because that's his favorite character, you know? And so it's like there are so many people who love Beverly Crusher, Starfleet Boy, Jay, we have our bonkers, you know.
Wilson Cruz, who plays Hugh
Wilson
on
Cruz,
Discovery.
Huge fan.
Who's the doctor on Discovery.
Loves her.
He's Beverly Crusher.
Yes. I mean, there's so many people. And I think he even said of how much she influenced his life. Or I think he had an ex-boyfriend that went in to become a doctor because of Beverly Crusher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, hello, these people want more Beverly.
She was a Scully effect before there was a Scully effect. It was the Beverly effect. She had helped people get into the sciences, like women, like STEM for women, right?
Yeah.
And that's why she should be a pivotal figure in Star Trek Picard, because this is Picard Week. right?
Right.
Not trying to shortchange Picard here, but you've got to understand Beverly Crusher is more than just a pretty face on the Enterprise that like is compassionate and loving and, you know, kind of.
But she's also very important to Picard's story.
Yeah.
So if we're going to put this with the Captain Picard week, she is so important to his story. She cannot be forgotten. But I don't know about you, but I had a lot of fun.
Remember me. Yeah.
But I had a lot of
35
fun,
years.
and I think this is great. Yeah. You know, like we said, we're very new to the podcast world. We just only have dropped 3 episodes. Our 4th one's going to be dropping here soon. And so I think we're just trying to show the Bev love. The Bev
heads out here doing what we do. Having fun.
Fathery named, you know, said that to Starfleet Boy, and then we ran with it. We're like, we're gonna go with it. Who's was it Tex Trek? Got to check him out too. So yeah, there's just so much going on. Trev and Stan and everybody in the Star Trek universe. I think it's just, you know, we mentioned Chris, and yeah, it's just one of those things that, you know, we're here to just throw it out there and hope everyone likes it. And we've met a lot of great people, a lot of fans.
Big shout outs to Julian, Giraffe. I mean, everybody at Strange New Pod who is doing this. Amazing. Yeah.
So, you know, this
Sorry if we forgot anyone.
I know it's hard.
We're kind of going off script at this point. Yeah.
So, but I'm having a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great people. I'm going back to Vegas to see more actors and see Gates again, and you know, definitely to go be like, I'm part of the Trek universe. You know, we got our
t-shirts now.
Got our Crusher Convo shirts going on, and yeah, it's really good to help, especially, you know, with something like this with Captain Picard week, to just show how important Beverly Crusher is for Captain Picard. So
yeah, it's been a blast.
It's been a lot of fun. So,
and as a Trekkie who's been a Trekkie from when I was 8 years old, it's such a blast to be doing a podcast about something I'm so passionate about that I just got into, like TNG recently, but also to be doing we're going to be talking about Star Trek Picard, you know, live. Like we're going to be engaging with fans and doing discussions as it's happening. So we will be talking about Star Trek Picard season 3 and Beverly Crusher. Focus on Beverly Crusher's role in it. So I am so excited to be covering a Star Trek series that's happening live. That's super exciting to me as pretty much a lifetime Trekkie. So thank you for the opportunity, Jessi, and for
You're very welcome. Together. Thank you for helping me through this journey of mine. Course. You know, like I said, I give all the credit to my husband. He was very persistent to bring me into this, but you know, he's been very supportive. And of course, you know, with the podcast, you know, dropping and we're getting our episodes, and, you know, if you want to hear us, we're on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google. We drop every 2 weeks on Sundays. Of course, right now we're only going to drop once a month while we're doing season 3 of Picard, but
we will be putting up those Picard reviews. You'll be getting something weekly from us, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, bonus episodes just to hear what we had to say after we reviewed the episode. So
I'm going to hear something, that's for sure. We'll see.
I have a feeling the screaming goat is going to make an appearance.
I think I do have. So you
can
there
see he is.
There's so when you hear it,
she's not having a good time.
We're gonna monitor how many screaming goats each episode gets based on what they do with Picrusher.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that the episode's bad. It's just my own personal feelings.
Just the own personal feelings.
We love you, Terry Metalis and crew. Like we're rooting for you here.
And here's the thing. I truly believe Terry is a huge Beverly Crusher fan, and he's just going to do her justice. And so I'm super excited, and it's nice to see that happening. So, but yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. And if you want to go ahead and do your ending, Michelle, go ahead.
Live long and prosper.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.